Hello, my name is Alex Reevy, and today for my History 101 POL, I will be talking about the way that the Second Great Awakening and the Compromise of 1850 resulted in the dissolution of the Union. First, I would like to talk about the Second Great Awakening, which started as a result of new Protestant churches popping up all over the United States and having very different viewpoints than the traditional churches of the United States. Now, these churches and later reform groups had views that touched on social issues of the time. For example, these groups felt that asylums and education systems could be improved by looking at the conditions that patients and students were under and changing that. Another social issue that they touched upon was the issue of slavery. Now, these churches had morals that lined up with the abolition movement. They felt that slavery was not only wrong, but also morally unjust. So what they started to do was voice their opinion publicly and started printing newspapers that appealed to abolitionist ideals. These newspapers reached their way into the North and the West and put into the minds of the public that abolition was a bad thing. And what this did was really solidify the divides between the Northerners who were pro-freedom and the Southerners who were pro-slavery. Next, I would like to talk about the Compromise of 1850. The Compromise of 1850 happened as a result of California gaining enough citizens after the gold rush to be able to apply for statehood. Now, when California applied for statehood, Congress had a dilemma on their hands. They didn't know whether to admit California as a slave state or a free state. It wasn't until a congressman by the name of Stephen Douglas came up with a compromise called the Compromise of 1850 that California was finally admitted as a free state. However, for California to be admitted, there needed to be some concessions made by both the North and the South. For one, the slave trade was banned in Washington, D.C. Now, there still was slavery in Washington, D.C. However, the slave trade and the buying of slaves was banned entirely. Second, the process was changed to that any states that wanted to apply into the Union were admitted through the process of popular sovereignty, in which the states themselves would decide whether they wanted to be slave or free. Now, while this compromise seems like an example of North and South agreeing on something, it's actually an example of the how close the United States was to conflict, because it showed that for the North and the South to agree on anything, even a new state being admitted to the Union, that each side would need to give up something in order for the other side to be happy. Thank you. This concludes my Fall POL.